Thank you for joining us today, and we're hoping that this will be an informative and interactive session. Our goal today is to share some insights on how next-gen ERP is helping healthcare organizations like yours leverage the power of automation, streamline processes, and optimize resource allocation to better understand the true cost of providing care to your patients and to increase your profitability, even amidst the dynamic conditions that are shaping the industry. So before we get started, a little housekeeping. We're going to go for about 45-50 minutes today. We'll definitely be done before the end of the hour. I can't hear you, so if you have questions for me, I encourage you to type those into the questions box in your GoToWebinar console. It's fairly easy, and I'll keep an eye on those as we go through, but we're very interested in your feedback as we go. And if you have more questions, we can address as many as we have time for at the end. So once again, I can't hear you, but if you have questions, there is a way for you to send those my way. Let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Tom Thornton. I'm the practice director at Net at Work for Sage Intacct, as well as our not-for-profit and healthcare finance industries. So I have spent a lot of time working in and around healthcare provider organizations during my career, and with a special focus on financial management. And so we're going to be talking about that specifically today in the case for cost tracking. But we're super excited to be able to chat with you about this today, because I think this is something that is getting more and more relevant with every new twist and turn that occurs in the revenue side of the business. For those of you who haven't met Net at Work before, Net at Work is a technology consulting firm that's been around for over 25 years, and we specialize in providing next generation technology solutions and services to our clients so that they're able to grow and optimize their businesses. These solutions are customized to meet the demands of specific industries such as healthcare, with the emphasis on being that we are helping our clients to put together ecosystems of applications and technologies that all work together to help them be more effective. We work with primarily small and mid-sized businesses and not-for-profit organizations to help them keep pace with their competition when new customers improve profitability and ultimately thrive in the digital economy. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, first of all, we're going to be talking about some of the issues and trends going on in the healthcare industry, and why it's so important and critical to have accurate and timely access to the financial performance of your organization. We're going to talk about something that may be new to you, the concept of the Digital Operations Platform, or DOP. These are important because this is a different way of thinking about the ecosystem of back office and front office applications that you have at your organization, and help you to understand how having this data tied together can really be make or break for you with some of the changes that are occurring in the industry today. We're also going to talk about Sage Intacct, which is our recommended cloud-native ERP for healthcare organizations in the mid-market, and we'll talk about specifics on that front. And then finally, as much as we have time for, we're going to answer as many questions as we can. So that being said, let's start off talking about the current climate in healthcare. First of all, healthcare leaders are facing a variety of unprecedented challenges in the sector today. Without a doubt, these challenges can be daunting, but they also present opportunities for transformation and improvement for those organizations that are willing to take the challenge. First of all, there's continued cuts to physician fee schedules, Medicare conversion factors, and coverage by private insurers, and these are having significant impacts on practices of all size. This is forcing many providers to limit the services they offer to patients, which in turn can make it difficult for patients to find the care that they need, especially if they have low incomes or complex health conditions. Also, there's a shift to alternative payment models that are creating significant challenges for healthcare providers. As shifts in reimbursement models lean toward lean more towards patient outcomes rather than fee for service, providers are assuming the burden of additional risk in certain patient populations as they adjust their practices to incorporate new payment structures. And lastly, these shifting financial challenges are compounded by the complexities of tying the costs of patient care to non-care related metrics like overhead and office staff and other things, other costs that you don't tie specifically to a patient or procedure, while simultaneously attempting to reduce administrative burdens and meet increasing patient demands using legacy technology that simply wasn't designed to handle the complexities of what's going on in the healthcare market today. So these are some big challenges that we've got to work through. It's not news to anyone that Medicare reimbursements haven't kept pace with inflation, but when you look at the data in this graph, it's staggering to see just how far apart the numbers have grown. This particular graphic only shows data up through this year, but I know that CMS has proposed reducing the 2024 Medicare conversion factor by 3.36%. Unfortunately, these cuts coincide with ongoing growth in the cost to practice medicine, as CMS projects the increase in the Medicare Economic Index for 2024 will be 4.5%. As Medicare funding and reimbursement rates continue to decline, cost tracking and cost containment will continue to be a top priority for healthcare providers as they seek innovative ways to recover this lost revenue. With the continued efforts to drive healthcare towards value-based payment models, providers are inherently assuming additional financial risk as they negotiate contracts with payers. When evaluating value-based contracts, healthcare providers need to have access to both accurate clinical data as well as financial data. The inherent risk is the penalties and reduced reimbursements that come from poor patient outcomes. For instance, bundled payment models shift the risk from payers to providers to incentivize them to manage costs associated with patient care. However, these patient populations may include patients with various comorbidities and condition severity. Under bundled payments, these high-risk patients increase the likelihood that a provider's cost of care could exceed the payments received under the agreement. Understanding the actual costs associated with the care of different patient populations you serve is key when negotiating with payers. Compounding the external factors that we've covered are the internal constraints that healthcare organizations put on themselves by using outdated technology systems that aren't equipped to handle the complexities of modern medicine. Legacy systems can be slow, they can be inflexible and difficult to integrate with newer technologies. And as a result, healthcare organizations that are still relying on legacy technology are finding it difficult to keep pace in today's digital economy. We'll talk more about what we mean by legacy systems in a second. But before we do that, let's do a poll. We're going to ask you to give us your opinion. How confident are you that your existing systems can handle today's challenges and those of the future? And that's good. We're seeing quite a diversity of responses here. So nobody's 100% confident, but there's a lot of, and nobody is completely discouraged at this point, but it's interesting to see the diversity of responses here. So, based on the poll responses so far, it looks like it definitely looks like everybody's kind of in the middle of the road here in terms of their readiness. So that's interesting. So thank you for responding to that. So, okay. Thank you for responding to the poll. All right. So now we're going to talk about the digital operations platform. So when we talk about the digital operations platform, or DOP, we're really talking about a generational shift from a technology standpoint, a generational shift in how we think about, in particular, our back office and front office technology that we use in our healthcare practices. There's a couple things that I think are really important. I think one of the best ways that providers can impact the outcomes is to reduce costs is by ensuring that they've got an accurate financial picture. They understand exactly what's going on. And this is only possible if they can have the right data in front of them. If you're working with one system that handles your clinical data, like your EMR, EHR, and you have an entirely different system for handling all of your back office financial management operations, and those systems aren't integrated with one another, you're at a distinct disadvantage when it comes to the data collection, analysis, and reporting needs of your organization. This is especially true as the prevalence of value-based care models becomes more widespread, and you need to have that true total cost accurately estimated what it is to actually deliver service to your patients. Having to manually collect the data from disparate systems and import it into a spreadsheet for formatting and analysis, for instance, is a very time-consuming process and leaves your organization vulnerable to human error. A simple mistake can wind up costing you thousands of dollars in terms of if you're completely off in terms of what it actually costs you to deliver a service. The good news is that there are technology systems out there that will allow you to tie all this information together in real time or near real time. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But it's really not possible. If you're still in that situation where all of these back office systems, your bookkeeping's in one place, your payroll and HR information's in another, your clinical data's in a third system, and none of it's connected, the only time that information is ever pulled together is when you're doing it yourself, the hard way. And which means that you're not doing it very often. It usually takes a lot of time. And by the time you do have it pulled together, it's a little stale. So this is something that is historically that's been very difficult to solve, but it's here we are in late 2023, and it's not. The technology exists for you to actually solve that today and to do so cost effectively. So the term that was actually coined by Forrester Research a few years ago is a digital operations platform, or DOP. And the idea is, as you see illustrated in the graphic here, is that if you start thinking about your back office business application ecosystem as an ecosystem instead of as individual point applications that have a very specific purpose, then you can start recognizing that like any other ecosystem, these things have to work together. They impact one another, and you don't know the true performance of your organization unless you're taking in the entirety of the ecosystem. So there's 7 attributes that Forrester identified of an ERP, of a DOP. It has to be easy to deploy. It has to be able to work with other applications easily. You can't get stuck on old versions. It has to have frictionless upgrading. It has to have artificial and machine learning technology as part of the core platform. It needs to be adaptable so that it can adapt to your unique circumstances of your practice and what you do, rather than you having to conform to the limitations of the applications themselves. You need to be able to have a strong analytical and interactive reporting engine that's native to it as well. Otherwise, it's just a big data repository. And if you're not a financial analyst, you may not be able to get it back out. There has to be something that's usable by the average finance person at a ambulatory health center or a long-term care facility. And finally, the user experience needs to be modern, needs to be easy to use, and needs to be innovating and staying fresh and current. Some of you on this call, I know just from looking at the registration list, are on some legacy systems where they probably feel the same way that similar systems felt 10, 15 years ago. They have not kept pace with the technology in the marketplace. But a DOP will have all 7 of these attributes, and it gives you the opportunity, and DOP is kind of like the next generation of ERP. So we're talking about the financial backbone of your organization, and that financial backbone is seamlessly integrated to your EMR, to your HR and payroll platform, whatever that is, if you have a separate billing platform. All those things you see illustrated there, that they all feel like they're part of one, but at a minimum, the data flows are automated and that information is flowing where it needs to go on a timely basis. So why should you care? Why, I pay my bills. I've got financials to give to the bank. Why do I care about this generational shift in back office technology? Well, honestly, it's the rapid change in the marketplace is making it to where those old systems are too rigid. You need to get information faster. You need to be able to understand and measure performance in either real time or near real time. And doing that when you're in old legacy systems that are disconnected is simply impossible. And this is going to put you at a competitive disadvantage in the marketplace. It's going to cost you money. You're not going to recognize as easily where your margins are and where their margins are good and your margins are bad. This is really an important distinction. So ultimately, what we want you thinking about is, as you look at this ecosystem of applications that are part of your practice today, you need to have less time dedicated to rote and manual tasks and more time focused on higher level activities and understanding the actual performance of the organization. Cost control is huge and it's important. You need to understand that it's not just the information in the clinical system. That's very valuable information. It's important. It's part of the revenue cycle for your organization to make sure you're getting paid. But it's only a piece of the puzzle when it comes to the true cost of delivering services. It's also important just to understand how the business is performing from a general management standpoint. You need to understand the financial performance in different areas of the practice or different locations. You need to be able to make data-driven decisions about the services you're choosing to provide. You need to be able to walk into contract negotiations with good information. You need to know when and how to add or grow your staff. There's all sorts of decisions that this system should be helping you to just better run your organization. It's not just making sure that you're maximizing your revenue opportunity. It's also just about running a healthy business. And finally, all of the people that interact with these systems have to feel like that they're serving them. That it's not the other way around. This isn't a compliance task for them to have to punch information into a system that doesn't actually give anything in return. It needs to be the other way around. They have to feel like that this is a really valuable set of applications and systems that help everybody be more effective in doing their jobs. All right, so I mentioned we recommend Sage Intacct as our go-to DOP for healthcare organizations in the mid-market. And so if you're a healthcare provider, particularly if you're in any form of ambulatory health or long-term care or similar sub-verticals of the healthcare market, Sage Intacct is the most widely used accounting software platform among healthcare providers in that sphere. The reasons that we recommend it, first of all, if we went back to the slide where I talked about the 7 attributes of a digital operations platform, Sage Intacct ticks all those boxes. It's native cloud application from the first line of code. It was never a Windows client server application that you had to buy a server for. This has always been natively in the cloud, accessible from any standards-based browser through a broadband internet connection. Importantly, it brings a true multi-dimensional accounting platform to the table. I'll talk more about dimensions in a second, but being able to slice and dice the performance of your organization by all the different ways that you might need to think about it. So you might want to look at it from a practice area, from a location, from a procedure even, all the way down to the patient level. You might want to be able to capture that information and be able to understand your costs of delivering service, your margin on different revenue streams that you have for your organization. Being able to see that is important too. And so Sage Intacct also brings a very sophisticated set of tools for understanding what you've collected in the system. So it's one thing to have a great repository for information. It's another thing to have an extremely rich and usable platform for reporting and dashboarding, and have that information be fully interactive so that you can drill into it and really understand where the numbers came from. We talked about it, how important integration is. So regardless of which EMR platform you use, you could be using Epic or Cerner or eClinicalWorks or whatever you happen to use for your patient record system, has the ability to integrate with any of them, and for those data flows to be completely automated in a secure way. We'll go into the software briefly here in a few minutes, but it is important to note that the user interface is something that's going to feel completely different for those of you who are on legacy systems, for those of you who are in the finance function. It's really built for CFOs, though. CFOs, the founders of Intacct were accountants, they weren't engineers. And their goal was to build a product they wanted to use. And they've kept that philosophy for the last 25 years. This product's been in the market. And it's definitely feels that way when you get in there and use it. So some things that are specific to Sage Intacct that I think are important for the folks on this call to know. Number one is that it's the only mid-market cloud ERP product that is HIPAA compliant. And they are willing to sign a business associate agreement, and it has all of the advanced auditing capabilities necessary for them to be in compliance with HIPAA. And so if you are concerned at all about protected health information, Sage is worried about it too. And they provide a platform that's very secure, it's auditable, and it will help you have confidence that the system is going to securely store any information that needs to be secured. It's also been peer reviewed by the Healthcare Financial Management Association, HFMA, which means that they've actually evaluated it and confirmed its suitability for use in a healthcare context. Some feature and functionality things that I think are really important. I mentioned dimensions. If you think about your chart of accounts in your accounting software today, you might be familiar with the concept of segments, and segments are useful. It means different things in different accounting packages, but if for a lot of legacy packages, a segment was one of the placeholders in a string account. You might have a 10 or 13 character account code where different segments of those 13 characters meant different things. You'll have a natural account, a department, location, things like that that are represented at different positions in that long account code. Dimensions are a little different because they are actually all treated independently from one another. So they're independent code tables. The combinations are assembled as needed on the fly, and allows you to have a much more granular and a much easier to manage chart of accounts versus a segmented chart of accounts. But the dimensionality, the real strategic value of that is allowing you to build a data model for performance management that allows you to analyze the performance of your healthcare practice at the level of granularity that's useful and helpful for you to make decisions and to negotiate good agreements with payers. The second thing that's really important is that Intacct is designed to capture statistical information. So this can be non-financial operational data that is relevant to your performance, but it's not dollars and cents. And this is often important context for evaluating anything that you're doing. You need to know not just how much money did you spend in a particular practice area, but maybe how many patients did you see, how many procedures did you perform, how many, whatevers. It is really unlimited in terms of the amount of statistics. You can capture outcome information, you can capture whatever you need to provide that necessary operational context to your financial results, and actually combine that information to give you appropriate performance ratios and things like that. In the context of value-based care models, you definitely need to understand the total cost of providing services. And those healthcare services are not just the direct costs associated with the labor and materials directly associated with a procedure or an encounter, but it's also the indirect costs associated with having an office and support staff and all the other things that go into running a healthcare practice. And so having the allocation tools that can help you use reasonable and consistent methods for allocating that cost across all those different cost areas is really important. It also, Sage Intacct provides full support for activity-based costing if that's something that you're doing as well, so that you can get as granular as you need to in terms of how you're parsing out that cost information. Another thing that we see is very, very relevant in the healthcare space today is that there is a lot of rolling up and mergers and acquisitions and things like that happening in the healthcare space. There's a lot of diversification occurring within healthcare practices where they're perhaps getting into new lines of business, opening new ventures and things like that. Sage Intacct provides a platform that makes managing a multi-entity operation very easy. It allows you to capture and segregate activity across these different entities, allows you to easily roll up if you need to do a more formal consolidation with eliminations. It has full support for consolidations. If you have fractional ownership, or if you need to do manage intercompany transactions and do tos, do froms, bill backs, all those things. All of that capability is native to the Sage Intacct system and would allow you to manage that with no more spreadsheets, no more duplicate entry. A couple more things. We talked about integration. Sage Intacct is designed, from the ground up to interact electronically with just about anything. While you, as an end user, might enter things through the regular user interface, just about anything that you can do through the user interface, you can also do through their web services API. This means making data flows from your clinical or EMR system or your payroll information each pay cycle, or information that you may be putting together from a FP&A perspective over in a budgeting and planning system. All that information can be flowing to and from Sage Intacct automatically using tools that Network can help you implement to make those data flows real time and not require human intervention. This is even in cases where there's some manipulation that's necessary, right? Sometimes there's data transformation that needs to occur. Once you have the data out of one system before it can be put into another, that too can be automated as well. When we talked about reporting and dashboards, it's really important that once we do have all this information available in one place for reporting, we need to be able to package it in a way that's useful for the audience that we're preparing this information for. So your executive leadership owners of your organization, the clinical practice leaders who may have budgets that they are monitoring or other information that they need to stay on top of. Even physicians who want to understand, there's a lot of physicians practices that we work with where the physicians are the owners. And so they have not only a professional interest in the outcomes of the patients and everything that's going on there, but they're also, financially interested in the performance of the practice as a business, and getting that information packaged the right way for those different audiences, knowing who they are and what their background is. Last thing I'll mention from a feature standpoint, and particularly in organizations where there's a multi-location practice, you may have a centralized purchasing and inventory system where you're keeping track of supplies, medications, all sorts of things. And Sage Intacct provides an inventory management platform that allows you to keep track of all those things, including any kinds of inventory items, whether that's requires lot serial or expiration tracking or anything else like that. So once again, there's a lot of really important relevant functionality for healthcare organizations that this comes natively with Sage Intacct, which is why we recommend it. Now, it's not just Network. They get a lot of recognition in the marketplace as well. Sage Intacct has a distinction of being the only preferred provider of accounting software by the AICPA. G2 Crowd, which is a reputation platform out there in the marketplace for software products like Sage Intacct, has consistently, it only shows 2022 here, but for the last 7 years, I believe Sage Intacct has been #1 for customer satisfaction. And industry analysts like Gartner routinely position Sage Intacct in the top right quadrant of their analyses when it comes to cloud financial management. So once again, this is some external validation that this is a very safe choice. We encourage you to do your due diligence and ask around, but I think you're not going to find anything inconsistent with what I just told you. All right, so as I promised, I am going to actually get into the software and show you a couple of things. I'm going to pause real quick, and it does not look like I have any questions so far, but I just want to remind you before I move on to the next thing that we do have a questions box that's part of your GoToWebinar console. If you have any questions about anything I've said so far, I encourage you to type those in there, and we'll make sure we answer those before we move off at the end here. All right, so what I'm going to do now, as I promised, I was going to actually take you into the Sage Intacct software. A couple things I'm going to show you, and a couple things I'm going to talk about, because some things are don't lend themselves to being shown easily. But what you're looking at right now is a web page. I'm in Google Chrome. I use that as my default browser, and I was able to log in and successfully navigate to my starting point in Sage Intacct. And in this case, I'm coming in as an executive, and I'm looking at a dashboard that I've created, or that's been created for me, that contains information that's relevant to what I want to see when I log in. There's some things I want to point out to you on here about this dashboard. First of all, it's completely customizable. You can have whatever information that you think is most relevant for your practice in your dashboard, or in whoever's dashboard. You can create as many as you need for as many different roles or personalities as you have in your organization that need access to a dashboard, and you can filter and tailor that information and securely share only relevant information with the right people through these dashboards. What I'm showing to you on here is just some examples of the type of information that can be captured and communicated through the reporting and dashboarding in Sage Intacct. So you can see that up at the top are what are called performance cards. And these performance cards are real-time data directly from the system that's being reported on, in some cases, financial information. So you see revenue, as well as a subset of revenue. I can have some of that non-financial operational data, so patient visits, new patient visits versus existing patient visits. I can have information coming over from my HR system, my total number of full-time employees. That seems pretty high. Looks like I've got a lot of employees relative to my patients in my sample data here, but in any case, you can see that I can incorporate a lot of different information, and I can do calculations based on this information. Each of these performance cards can have a conditional indicator on it as to whether or not it's a good or bad or indifferent. You can put in some contextual comparative information so that you can at a glance understand not only how good or how bad it is, but and actually drill back to the source numbers. So if I do click on this, it will take me back to the calculation in the report, and I can actually drill into this 874 number and see the transactions that rolled up to that directly from the ledgers, all from my dashboard. So once again, when I was reviewing some of the unique attributes of a digital operations platform, as well as the distinguishing factors of Sage Intacct that make it an especially compelling choice for healthcare organizations, this reporting and interactive reporting, where I can create views into the performance of the organization, that can be for the CEO, or it can be for any financial role I can think of for the organization, or I can create a physician or a practice director view that is showing the area of responsibility for that individual, and have that information presented to them in the context that they're comfortable with, at the level of detail or summary that they're comfortable with. It's extremely powerful. I do want to point out some of the other components on this dashboard. You can see that I can create all kinds of different graphs and charts and visualizations of data, and that's useful. I can also embed entire financial statements with conditional formatting so that I can understand what's going on here. I'm actually going to drill into this report for a second so that we can see exactly how some of the report writing works. So once again, while I'm in here, you can see that most of these numbers have a hyperlink the blue text is exactly what you think it is. If I see that, I can drill into the GL details, and I can drill back to the original transactions where that was captured. And if there had been any supporting documentation loaded with that transaction at the time it was created, I would be able to access it from here. I don't have any on this particular transaction. But the idea is that this is designed to be extremely interactive. I can also send this same information out to people external to the Intacct system in the form of a spreadsheet or a PDF. But what I wanted to do first is I actually want to go back to my dashboard. And I'm actually going to modify this. And this is really to talk about the power of dimensionality. So in the financial report writer for that report, what you can see is that I'm not going to go through everything in here, but I can see the basic breakdown of the structure of the report. I can see the columns that were selected for this report. So I have an account, my current year actual, my current year budget. Actually, it's a monthly. I have a budget difference and a budget variance, which is a percentage, it looks like. And so, but let's just say I want to see that actual number broken down by some other dimension of what's going on in my organization. So I have the ability to come into this actual column, and with just this one setting, which is expand by, I can choose any dimension of my chart of accounts. And I can just say, I want to see that P&L broken out by department. And I can say set, and I can say preview a live report. And what it's going to do is it's now taking all that information that was once in that single actual column, and it's breaking it out into separate columns for each of those department categories that had activity during the period. And so this is a really powerful thing because this allows us to really understand and slice and dice the information. I chose department, but it could be a practice area, it could be a procedure, it could be whatever you've decided to break down your cost structure to be. If that's being sussed out in the way that my transactions are captured, if it's coming over from my EMR that way, then I can report on it in the Sage Intacct report writer this way. And the important thing is that I'm able to bring in other stuff besides just the direct labor and materials associated with providing that health information. I can bring in all of my indirect costs as well. So all of my indirect payroll, facilities expenses, and things like that can be part of the true cost of understanding how each of these different areas of the practice are performing. So once again, it's an extremely powerful thing to be able to break things out this way. To be able to do that, you'll notice that when we were looking at the financial report writer, you didn't have to know anything about databases. You didn't have to know how to write SQL statements. You didn't have to be a BI expert or any kind of technical wizard to make it happen. As long as you understand how your data is being captured, you can learn this point and click interface for building financial reports and tailoring them to show the information the way that you want to see it. Okay, so I did want to talk, I mentioned I was going to show some, I was going to talk about some. I want to go back for a second and talk just for a second about statistical accounts. So in a healthcare context, you can create as many different statistics or operational metrics as you want to capture. And the thing works exactly the way that you would expect a journal entry to work. I'm going to create an account, in this case, a beds available account, and I'm going to code units to it. And those units can be at whatever level of granularity I want. And in a given period, I can increase or decrease the same way I would a debit or a credit an account, and it's going to accumulate that information and it's going to report on it just like it would a ledger transaction. But when you look at these statistical accounts, all of this information is information that's going to be captured that can be reported on side by side with your financial results for the same categorization. So it is very, very flexible in adapting to the unique nuances of how you look at your practice and how you capture information. Once again, I was just mentioning that. What we can then do, just to see that in practice, is that I can actually come in here and for a given period, this was, what I'm going to show you right now is actually what I would consider to be kind of the hard way to do it, but you can actually do it Sorry, I'm so accustomed to doing debit and credit in the general journal. I just, statistical journal, example. But the idea here is that if I wanted to adjust that beds available, I can do that by department for a particular location. I can assign an employee. I have other dimensions that I can assign as well for this. But the important thing is that for this combination of department and location, I want to increase that by 10. And I can submit it. You notice it says submit, not post. There's a workflow in the system that can be enforced to require review of transactions before they get posted in the system. But the important thing here is that going in and adjusting statistical amounts is just as easy as it is to go in and make a basic journal entry to reclass an entry from one account to another. The thing I'd like you to recognize, though, is that in addition to this statistical account, you saw that the department and location were separate fields. If you came from a segmented account string type of accounting system, those would have been concatenated together, 200-100/-BDA-VL. So once again, this is gives you an idea of how easy it is for you to assign appropriate combinations in real time as you're putting information into the system. I'm not going to save that, but I just wanted to kind of show you how easy that is. Now, I said this is the hard way. Ordinarily, this information would exist somewhere else. Worst case scenario, it's in a spreadsheet somewhere, but most likely it's in some other operational system. It might be part of your EMR. It might be in some other database. If the data exists in electronic form anywhere, we can help automate that data flow so that data can be updated in as close to real time as is practical. And the idea here is that, you know, the timeliness of information is really a primary indicator of its usefulness for decision making. So if that information is available and it changes at any point in time, and we have the ability to go grab it, we can configure the data flows to go ahead and update that information in as close to real time as, once again, as it is practical to do so. So once again, this is a very, very small tidbit of some of the functionalities. I'm trying to cherry pick a few things here to kind of whet your appetite. What we'd love to be able to do is to put together a presentation that is more tailored to your personal situation. I know that many of you on this call have finance responsibility in your healthcare organization. I know some of you are more on the clinical side, but in either case, if your organization really needs to take a hard look at modernization, we'd prefer to show this to you in a context that's more closely tailored to how you would use it. So with that being said, I'm actually going to flip back over to our deck. And we actually have one more poll that we're going to do. So if you don't mind indulging me, we're going to do one more poll. And the question is, how does your organization address technology enhancements today? How do you go about reviewing, evaluating, and deciding on where you're going to invest in terms of technology upgrades? So let's see what you think. Do you have a strategic roadmap and you follow that religiously, or you kind of shoot from the hip? We don't actually upgrade our technology, or we don't know. And it looks like so based on the responses I'm seeing so far, the answer appears to be kind of a split between we don't ever upgrade our technology, which means you probably just haven't been there long enough since the last time it was upgraded, or we do it as needed. And so those are, I think, kind of two different versions of the same answer, right? If you've been there long enough, you'll eventually upgrade something because you were required to. But nobody seems to have a strategic roadmap. And so That's something that we really strongly advocate for at Network. So let me drill into that for a minute with everybody before we move on. So as we're looking at, what does it take to actually get something like a digital operations platform in place for your healthcare practice? I think it's really important to, first of all, you have to kind of stop for a minute, take a breath, and really understand where it is that you're trying to go. You need to understand what point B is, and you need to understand what the difference is between where you are today and what that point B is. And there's probably lots of pieces to it, right? Before you get going, you're going to want to follow a systematic approach that involves, that's part of your strategic planning process, as well as assessing all the technology that you have in place today. We're not just talking about the accounting software like Sage Intacct, but we're talking about your EMR, your whatever you're doing for payroll and HR, and any other operational systems that you may have in place that are part of this ecosystem. And then and we need to kind of understand where those are in terms of your strategic goals and priorities. We want to have that kind of comprehensive view of it, because there's going to need to be prioritization applied to this. Nobody can afford to do everything at once. And that's why it's a roadmap. You're going to have to go through and say, you might come up and say, there's 4 main components to our roadmap that needs to be addressed. We need to modernize our financial reporting backbone, and we need to upgrade our EMR to to a newer version or a newer technology platform, and we need to invest in our payroll platform so that we can get our labor costs at the right level of granularity for matching that cost, for our financial reporting model. There's all sorts of different things that might be part of it, but nobody really has the bandwidth to take all that on at once. So getting that 5-year vision in place, putting those incremental goals in place and priorities, deciding how you're going to measure progress towards that, and then getting that roadmap documented and socialized and agreed upon by all the stakeholders that need to be invested. And then once it comes time to actually do the work, you need to have the executive support to get the work done. You need to have the team invested and given the resources to actually execute, and you need to track your progress. But really envisioning, road mapping, and then execution. Those are the real 3 steps for people who are successful at this digital transformation process. All right, so I'm showing we're at about 50 minutes right now, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm putting my contact information on the screen. I would love to chat with you about any of the topics that I've talked about today. My contact information is there. You're welcome to send me an email or drop me a line. We are, we are confident that over time, every healthcare practice is going to migrate to what we're calling here the digital operations platform. This will happen for every one of your organizations at some point. It's just a question of when. So I think it is really important to start thinking about when are we going, we meaning your organization, going to engage in this modernization effort. And it's not going to be the same answer for every single one. One thing I do also want to plug while we're on the line here is that we have another online event, Modern Healthcare's virtual briefing on October 12th. The topics will be around AI and digital health, and I'll be on there along with a panel of healthcare and employee experience professionals. We'll be discussing stabilizing vital signs of burnout to realize opportunities for operational efficiency. So lots of unfortunate stories of provider burnout out there in the industry today, and that's what we'll be chatting about. If you have any questions, the questions box is still open. You're welcome to type them in there. Otherwise, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today, and keep an eye on your emails. We'll have future events like this. We'll do more topics, particularly relevant to the healthcare industry. Thanks so much.